Hi folks, I'm Joe. Welcome to my greenhouse and to my collection of cacti and other weird and wonderful succulent plants. Today's cactus question of the day is, how do I best look after a cactus, and most other succulent plants for that matter, during the darker and colder parts of the year, the winter months? This can be a really tricky time for succulent enthusiasts, and unfortunately, a lot of the plants that die in our collections throughout a year, well, unfortunately, they die during this winter period. Whether you grow your plants indoors, for example on windowsills, or have them outside during the summers, or grow them in a greenhouse, like myself now, I hope that the following information and tips are going to be very useful to all of you cacti and other succulent enthusiasts. I've grown these plants in all of these places I mentioned over the past almost 50 years of growing cacti and succulent plants. And I want to share some of my experiences with you. Cacti and other succulents have their main period of growth from spring to autumn. So roughly mid-late spring to early mid-autumn. And there's a lot of information available on this main growth period, how best to cultivate cacti during these spring, summer, and autumn months. But what about the rest of the year? In some places, this can be up to 6 long months of winter. Let me start by saying that this period of dormancy or rest is really, really important. The vast majority of our cacti and succulent plants need and actually take a break during the winter period. I'm going to explain in a moment why that is. Also, I do want to mention here that there are, of course, as so often, a few exceptions to the rule of winter dormancy. And for example, the so-called Christmas cactus, the name gives it away. These are cacti that actually have their main growth period and are in full bloom during midwinter, often around Christmas. I'm going to talk a little bit more about these exceptions on another occasion, because today I'm going to focus on the vast majority of our plants, the cacti and succulents, that do need a period of rest during the winter months. And it's vital they do so. There's 3 good reasons for this. First of all, better health. To ensure the long-term health, growth, and even the natural resilience against pests, bugs, and fungi. Secondly, better looks or appearance. It's vital for maintaining their natural appearance for well-developed strong spines and beautiful coloration. And the third point, the ability to develop flowers. Observing this period of dormancy is a really crucial prerequisite for the development of flowers in the spring or summer, if the plants are old enough to do so in the first place, of course. But if we do not provide our cacti and many of our succulent plants with a winter break period, they are unlikely going to be developing their beautiful flowers in spring or in summer. So remember, the better rested and healthy your plants get through the winter months, the better they will grow and then often even bloom and flower in the spring and summer. Now, I'm also often asked why. Why do cacti actually go dormant for a period of time in the first place? To answer that, let's take a brief look at some of the underlying science. In nature, many plants, trees, grasses, and shrubs take a seasonal break. They have a period of dormancy, often shedding their leaves or retracting underground when they do so. This happens during periods of either much colder, sometimes much hotter temperatures of the year, or during periods of less water or drought, or also during periods of less light availability. So, temperature, light, and water availability are the triggers and key factors in the environment that drive the natural cycles of our plants' growth. And our cacti and most other succulents are no different, and they're equally affected by these environmental factors. During our winter months, no matter whether we live on the northern or the southern hemisphere, usually temperatures will be much lower, and days will be much shorter, so less light availability, and our plants will behave differently and need somewhat different cultivating from the rest of the year. Here, where I live, it's now January, on the northern hemisphere with relatively cooler, often very cold temperatures outside. Also, days are much shorter than in the summer, and often even the short days themselves can be relatively gloomy and dark, and so a lot less sunlight and light availability or intensity for our plants in general. And of course, less light and less warmth often means that our plants are less able to perform photosynthesis, which of course is the foundation for plant growth. And so their metabolism slows down, and they're quite literally just taking a break or a rest. Now, let's look at what is important to keep in mind as we help our plants navigate through their winter breaks. And keep in mind that normally there's always a gradual, a transitional period between the main growth period and the winter dormancy period, especially if we grow our plants in a greenhouse. Now, what is the ideal temperature for our plants during the winter? Generally speaking, the vast majority of cacti do not tolerate frost or temperatures below freezing. And if we've grown our plants outdoors during the summer and the early autumn, we will need to bring them inside before the first occurrence and the onset of frost. Again, there are some exceptions to this rule. The so-called group of winter hardy cacti who do tolerate sub-0 degrees centigrade temperatures and who can continue to be kept outdoors, especially if kept dry and in well-drained soils. But we're going to talk about these on another occasion. So for today, back to the vast majority, the non-winter hardy cacti and succulents, which we need to bring inside, protected from frosty conditions. Now, among these, there are generally speaking two groups, depending on which area of the world they originally have come from. So we need to distinguish group one, first of all, those that are quite content with relatively cool temperatures in winter, around 5 to 10 degrees centigrade. Most cacti from Northern America, parts of Mexico, but also from high altitudes in mountains of South America, or from Patagonia in southernmost parts of South America, they all belong to this group of cool, loving winter dormancy periods. So they're quite happy in a very cool location during the winter. I actually keep the majority of my plants in the greenhouse at temperatures between 5 and 8 degrees centigrade. And then there's group 2, those that need slightly higher temperatures, say a minimum of 12 to 15 degrees centigrade or so. Many of these originally grow in coastal, near coastal lowland areas of South America. Many of them grow in Brazil, succulents from Madagascar, Eastern Africa, or the Middle East. So this group 2, they do need a slightly warmer location during the winter period. Still cooler than during the summer, but not quite as cold as that group 1 in the very cool location. So this group 2, 12 to 15 degrees minimum. Now, it's important that you get an idea of which of these two groups your own plants belong to and group them accordingly. Do some research well ahead of the winter months. Many of us have collections with plants, of course, belonging to both groups. That is really important to keep in mind, and they should normally not be mixed, especially the plants that require warmer temperatures. They will not be happy and actually quite likely may die if kept at too low temperatures. As I said, in my greenhouse, I generally keep temperatures at around 5 to 8 degrees during the winter. I do that with heaters, and I have, though, physically separated off a small area where I maintain slightly higher temperatures, around 12 degrees centigrade, for those plants that would not survive the cold main area of the greenhouse. If you're growing your plants indoors all year round, then look for a place in the house where you can keep your cacti at slightly lower, cooler temperatures than in a warm, heated living room. This may be in a cooler corridor, but it also may be in the basement of your house. I've actually kept a large collection of cacti in the cool basement every winter for years. Some with growing lights, but also many without any light at all. Not ideal, but amazingly, many cacti can actually tolerate extreme conditions of this kind. Now, we've covered the aspect of temperature in quite some detail. What else is important for a successful dormancy period and break? Here, there are three things I think that are key. First of all, provide air movement. Definitely avoid stagnant air. Make sure you have a certain amount of air movement, and I'm not talking about draft. That should be avoided too. Air movement is key to avoiding plants being attacked by fungi or other pests and bugs. I use electrical fans in my greenhouse. They're connected to electrical timers to help me with that. Second point, keep the soil in the pots dry. Significantly less or even no watering if possible. Maintain a relatively low humidity, so relatively drier air to avoid, again, fungi and rot attacking your plants. I'll come back to the element of the watering in a moment. The third point, definitely no fertilizer or nutrients during the winter. The plants have significantly reduced their photosynthesis, so they would not even be able to take in and absorb any nutrients. So why less or no watering? Well, under normal growing conditions in the summer, most cacti are quite happy to have regular water provided. They breathe through their root systems, take in carbon dioxide, generate oxygen, etc. But if they're in their winter dormant period with low metabolism and hardly any photosynthesis ongoing, any water given will just not be absorbed by the roots. So the water will also not evaporate very fast in these cool temperatures, and the soil will remain wet and soggy for a much longer period of time than during the warmer summer months. And if there's one thing that cacti hate most, a bit like many humans really, that is having to stand around with wet feet, roots that is, in the cold for a long time. So chances are they would quickly develop rot around the roots and the lower stem close to the damp soil, and they would die off within a few days. Whether or not you actually stop completely with watering during the winter months, or you decide to give a little bit of water maybe every 3, 4, 5 weeks, that will really depend on your local growing conditions and the location at which you can actually keep your cacti during the winter months. I would say the cooler the location, the drier you should keep them. So in my greenhouse, I generally do not give any water to any of my plants from pretty much mid-October to end of February. And how do I get them back into the growing rhythm? I generally start off with a bit of spraying during January, February on sunnier days, but I do that in the mornings so that there's enough time to actually dry off by the end of the day, again to avoid rot occurring on the plants. Hopefully I've been able to give you some ideas about what cacti do during the winter months, when they're in their dormant period, not in growth. Also, why they actually take a break, like I said, to survive an extreme period of low metabolism triggered by lower temperatures and lower light availability. And hopefully I've also given you some ideas about how best to look after your cacti and other succulents during these winter months. If you found this video summary useful, please give me a like, and it would be fantastic if you subscribe to my channel. I'd be delighted to share more of my experiences with you and also to hear back more about your own experiences. That's it for today. Take care, happy growing, see you next time.